We're officially in the top half of the top 1,000 of BGG. The trash half is done.
Done and buried.
Now we're getting to the less trash half.
Boom, let's get after it. This is 500 to 401.
What's up, everybody? My name is Nick.
I'm Mike.
We are the Brothers Murph, and that's right. We're going through the top 1,000 games of BGG, picking our 10 favorite games from each individual 100. We are now officially in the front half, so we're doing 500 to 401 in this list.
Oh, yeah.
The other ones were already getting tough. There are really so many great games, and it's just going to get worse from here on out. In terms of, it's getting worse to have to decide only 10 games.
Exactly. But we're going to do our very best to choose just 10. And hopefully, you know, if we don't name a game that you like, just assume that we haven't played it or that we hate it.
Truth.
And that's why it's not on the list. Or that we can only choose 10.
Or maybe it wasn't on the list when we looked at the list.
Because things are shifting.
Because things shift. So sometimes people are like, where is this game? It's like, well, it literally was on the list when we did this thing. So also know that the list might change when you watch this. But nonetheless, let's go and get our top 10.
So number 10 here on this list is No Thanks. This is a game that we actually just finally tried for the first time very recently, and we understand why it's such a classic. This is a classic anti-bidding game, where a lot of times in games you're bidding and spending money or whatever the resources might be to collect things. In this game, you have a bunch of cards that have numbers on them, and those points are bad. You do not want to have points. You want to have as low a score as possible, so if you get a card that has 30 on it, that's 30 points, that's not a good thing. So when you have a card that comes out, if it's a card that you do not want, you will put out little chips that are saying, I will pay money to not take this card. And you go around, and if you don't want the card, say no thanks, and you put a little chit out there, and it goes around and around and around until someone either runs out of resources or they decide, you know what, I'll take it. When you take the card, that's points that score against you. However, any and all money or chits or whatever, the little kind of discs that get thrown out there, all go to you. So you get to collect a bunch of these resources, which are useful because there is a kind of closed pool, a closed economy of resources here in the game. So maybe it's worth it to you. You're like, you know what? I've got all of these count against my score later anyway. I feel like this is useful. I'll have more flexibility later because I can keep no thanksing and kind of pass the buck on to the next player who just spent a bunch of money I saw, so maybe they don't have so much money in their hand. And you can kind of work it that way. The other cool thing is that if you manage to create a run of cards, so I had that 30, but then 29 comes out. If I take 29, I get to put it on top of 30. The 30 disappears. And now there's only 29 left, and I can maybe play at 28, 27, 26, 25, and bring that score down gradually, and again, kind of collect those resources. So it's a really simple set of rules that creates a ton of fun, and it's just so fun to like kind of hoard as many of these resources as you can, or try to play it slick even if you don't have many resources, and kind of laughter and hilarity ensues in a really simple rule set. That is No Thanks.
Number 9 is another game in the Evolution line, and this is Oceans. Evolution Oceans. We really, really like Evolution Oceans. It's definitely our favorite of the Evolution games. There's Evolution, Evolution Climate, and now Oceans. Oceans takes place in the ocean, as you can probably understand, and you're eating fish and you're gobbling up stuff like that. And basically, the reason why we like this game better is it's just like Evolution, where you have different species and you are putting different traits on those species. In normal Evolution, you might be putting on horns, or you might turn into a carnivore, you have like pack hunting, all these different traits that make you better at eating, because eating is points to the game. You want food. But in Oceans, the kinds of traits are smaller, but there's so much more symbiosis. There's so many more symbiotic relationships within the game, where basically your species might be leeching off other species, and it'll leech off the species to the right. But the species to the right might be one of your other species, or it might be the leftmost species to the player on your right. And so everything kind of works in this big circle, and it just feels much, much more natural and within that theme of evolution. It just works really, really well. There are also these deep cards that you can play with, which is this big old stack of cards, and it has a whole bunch of other traits. And these traits are bonkers. They're all over the place. They're like super crazy or super aggressive or super this or super that. They're really, really wild, and there's a whole bunch of them. And so they really changed the game up a lot. We absolutely love Evolution Oceans. It's got that great art that Evolution has, and it's just, for us, it's like this is kind of Evolution's final form. You know, Evolution was great, Evolution Climate was even better, and Oceans is even better. We absolutely love it.
Number 8 is Friday. This is a solo-only game from Friedmann Friese where you are playing as the character Friday, who is helping out Robinson Crusoe, trying to make sure they don't die on you because they're not very skilled, and you need to help them learn their survival skills and take care of them. In this game, you're going to be presented with challenges, which are going to need a certain number of successes to overcome. Now, again, Robinson's not very skilled, so there's a starting deck of cards that Robinson has that mostly have zeros, meaning no successes, or negative ones, which means they're failures. They take you further away from succeeding in your goal. And the game comes down to choosing when and where to dig in and try to keep drawing cards out, which will start to cost you life as your energy is kind of wasted to get those successes needed to collect a card. Or do you let something go and you get to get rid of some of your bad cards from your deck and kind of mitigate the deck building element there. So it's all about kind of culling cards, but if you succeed in a challenge, you get to flip the card over and it becomes something that Robinson is basically now more skilled. So there's going to be more successes on those cards. There's going to be special bonuses and abilities like regaining your life or drawing additional cards for free that you start to gain access to as you succeed. Once you go through the deck of kind of challenges, you will reshuffle it and the challenges kind of go to a level 2, then a level 3, then eventually you have to face down some pirates to ultimately win the game. It's a very difficult game to win, but one that is really, really fun and satisfying and kind of determining like, how much do I dig in here? Do I think I have a success on top of this deck? Did I get rid of enough of my negative cards? Do I think, am I hedging my bets? Or when do I let things go and kind of fight, another day? It's a really fun game, one I do not have a high success rate at, but I keep coming back to because it's just a great solo game experience. That is Friday.
Number 7 is probably my favorite gateway game at this point, and it's Shapes, and that is Project L. Project L is a great gateway game because it's just straight up simple. This is a game where you're gonna have a little dual layer card, and this card is gonna have a void in the middle of it, and you have to fill that void in with these beautiful acrylic shapes. Very tactile game. It's one of the reasons why it's such a good gateway game, but it also just makes sense, right? You have this void, you have these shapes, fill in that void with those shapes. Once you fill in the void on that card is now done. You get those shapes back. They go back into your own supply, and then you'll get to score that card at the end of the game. That's pretty much it. And then you'll get to draft stuff. You can upgrade some shapes into bigger shapes, a couple other things, but it's just so simple. And especially for gateway games, you want something that people are gonna inherently understand. One of the reasons why I like Carcassonne is because, like, hey, when you're putting out tiles, you have to make everything make sense. You can't have a road just dead ending into grass. You have to make the roads make sense. You have to make the city walls make sense. That's very intuitive, and I think that's very important for a gateway game, and Project L just works in that way. It's like, hey, fill in this area with these shapes. People can do that, and it just works really well. It's got a great look, it's simple, it's got the tactile nature of the acrylic tiles, it's absolutely wonderful, and it's my favorite gateway game right now.
Number 6 is Point Salad. This is a great game for 2 to 6 players. That's just a simple, basic set collection kind of game where you are collecting vegetable types, I suppose, to make a wonderful salad back at home. There are cards that are double-sided. One side will show vegetables. The other side will show scoring conditions, which would be set collection stuff. Like, for example, every pair of onion and carrot you have, you'll get 5 points at the end of the game. On your turn, you can either draft 2 vegetable cards from a little 6-card market, or you can take 1 scoring card and place it face down in front of you, which will be a way for you to now score cards. There's a million different kind of scoring cards. Some will reward you for avoiding certain types of vegetables, for really focusing on a certain type of vegetable, or for having the most carrots or tomatoes out of the group of people, all sorts of different things. This is a great one to bust out with people because it's really simple. Again, you can take 2 cards of vegetables or 1 of the scoring cards, put it in front of you. You hope to get kind of a blend of a number of vegetables in front of you, a number of scoring cards that are kind of synergistic with that. but it's a really kind of simple game that goes down smooth. It's really, really fun when you can kind of play with anybody. It's a great filler game. So Point Salad's one that we've enjoyed for a couple years now, and we don't see it going anywhere.
Our number 5 is in this part of the list for right now, but I think this is going to be in the top 100, and that is Planet Unknown. Planet Unknown is so darn good. This is my favorite polyomino tile laying game right now, where you are terraforming a planet, and you are getting these different tiles, which have different landscapes on them, and you're putting them down onto a planet. And the cool thing is this game is all simultaneous. So if you're playing this with 2 people to 6 people, the gameplay isn't really all that different because there's not much interaction, there's not much you can really do, but there's this big lazy Susan in the middle, and that's where you're gonna be getting your tiles from. So when it's your turn, you get to choose which depot is facing you. And then you then get to get something from that depot. But then whatever is facing everyone else, everyone gets to get a tile from the depot on everyone's turn. Just on your turn, you get to choose which depot is in front of you. But you're always getting stuff. And then you have tracks. Mike, what do we love doing?
Bumping tracks, baby.
We love bumping tracks. And so there are 5 tracks in the game, and whenever you put down a terrain tile, you're gonna bump the subsequent tracks. You put down like a rover terrain, you're gonna bump your rover track. Then on those tracks, there's lots of other like synergy bonuses where now you get to bump other tracks. You get to do these things now, and you put together these wonderful combos. And the cool thing is this game could be played all the same where everyone has the same corporation and the same planet, or you can play on different corporations where everyone has a different async corporation where they're all different. Or you can play on all different planets where the planets are all different. So you can play this game in so many different ways, and it just works. This game sings, seemingly everyone loves it, and I think it's gonna be the top 100 games of all time on BGG because it's just so darn good. And when it becomes more and more available, more people are gonna play it, I think it's gonna shoot up. I absolutely love Planet Unknown.
Number 4, some city building goodness. This is Quadropolis. This is a game where you are building up a city in this kind of grid of foundational spaces, I'll say. And you are doing a really interesting drafting system where you have a bunch of tiles and kind of a central board that you can all take from. And you have these different kind of architects. I have numbers 1 through 4 in the basic game. And if you have a 3 and you put it on the left side of the kind of central board, you'll count 1, 2, 3 spaces in from the side where you placed your little architect and take that 3rd tile, or the 2nd tile. If you played a 2 or a 1, you'll take the 1st tile. So there's an interesting way of the kind of, how do I get pointed toward the actual tile that I want? And there's a city planner that goes around kind of blocking spaces, so it kind of makes you have to get a little bit creative with it. And then when you take a tile, if I took it using a 3, I have to place it into my board in either the 3rd row or the 3rd column. So there's all this kind of spatial stuff to think of. And certain types of buildings want to be in certain locations. You have housing for the people, you have stores. Stores want to have little meeples that go into them because those are people shopping. You have harbors and things which bring in resources for your town, but they need energy to run. So there's kind of simple things to think of. Tiles will provide you those meeples and those kind of energy resources. And this is the drafting of the 1, 2, 3, or 4 has to go into the 1, 2, 3, or 4 on your building. And how do you fill out your building in such a way that all the buildings are kind of next to what they want to be next to score the most amount of points? It's super fun. It's a great production from Days of Wonder. It's one that we still think is underrated. It's in the top 1,000, so not really that underrated. But we feel like people don't talk about it enough. We love it so much. That is Quadropolis.
Our number 3 is just, I just love this game. It's Potion Explosion. Potion Explosion, I mean, it's within this 504 one, so people like it too. It's just so darn fun. Potion Explosion is amazing. This is a game where you are, it gets compared to Candy Crush a lot, but basically there is gonna be a big contraption in the middle with a bunch of colored marbles, yellow, blue, red, and black. And you're gonna take a marble out of there and put it on your little potion that you're trying to build. And those potions will take those different colored marbles, like 3 black and 2 blue or something like that. And so you're grabbing those, you're grabbing the marble and you're putting it on there. But the cool thing is when you grab a marble, the other marbles go boop and fill in the spot because it's on a slope. And the cool thing is when you take out a marble, when those two things come together, If two of the same color marble then hit each other, you then get those ones as well. So if I pull out a blue and there's 2 reds on either side of it, I pull out a blue and then boop, 2 reds hit, I get those red as well. But then what if there's like 2 yellows on the other side of that? Then it goes boop and I get those 2 yellows as well. And you get these like kind of like cascading marbles effect. You just get more and more, you're like, ooh, I'm gonna grab this because I'm gonna be able to grab like 6 or 7 marbles. And you're working on 2 potions at a time. And when you finish a potion, you throw the marbles back in the marble machine and then you flip that potion over and it's gonna be worth points. But on top of that, every single potion has a special power. And I think there are 5 potions in the game that you play with. And so at any time during your turn, you can glug, 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 drink that potion and then get that special power real quick, which is usually gonna be you getting more marbles. It might be like, you can grab 1 marble of each color that's at the bottom of the contraption. So you're like, oh, there's 1 of each kind. I'm gonna drink this one and grab 4 more marbles right now. There's all these different ways the potions work and you can use them, and when you use them, you still get the points. There's no reason to not use them. It's just so fun. You can put together these great combos, these great turns. It's just such a tactile game. Another great gateway game. It's a little more complicated than something like Project L, which I talked about earlier, but it's still really, really fun and so tactile. It's just great.
So number 2 is Boon Lake from Alexander Pfister. This is a game that we really enjoy, and clearly other people do as well. It's been a little bit mixed, though, sometimes with the reviews, but we think it's really fantastic. It's one of our favorite games of his. This is a game where you're kind of happening upon this new lands, these uninhabited lands and stuff, and you're kind of building up the lands with placing out tiles, and then kind of getting your cattle and a bunch of things on your player board, off your player board and out onto the lands, which is representing you kind of settling and building up cities and prospering. This game is really cool because it keeps you engaged the whole time, because whoever the active player is, they're going to choose an action, and those actions will have a follow mechanism. They'll have a part of the action that's only for the active player, but then other people get to do this other part over here. So I love that you're always kind of engaged with the game. That is one thing that does lead to the game being a little bit longer, however, because you have a lot of people who are making decisions and things. So we kind of play this at 2-player or solo only, but we really enjoy the kind of cadence of the game of a board that's empty that you populate with tiles. Those tiles present opportunities for you to build houses and then upgrade those houses into settlements. And the way you kind of need to work your resources are really interesting because you don't have physical resources you gather, but you have kind of production buildings and these canoes that go up on a river to symbolize you kind of collecting those resources from the land to build out a bunch of cards. You can build out a huge tableau of cards in this game where you are going to have cards that give you instant benefits, end-game scoring opportunities, and then in-game benefits like discounts on certain types of cards or additional money and rewards if you play out certain types of actions and things like that. So we love the ability to kind of stack those card abilities on top of each other to make really strong kind of combinations and stuff like that. The card play for us is just super duper fun, and we love Boon Lake, and that's why it's on our list.
Our number 1 from 500 to 401 is Empires of the North. This is a game where you can just give me any faction and I will want to play it. We love Empires of the North so much. This is a game, it's kind of a successor to Imperial Settlers, which is a successor to 51st State. There's kind of been a couple different iterations of this game, but in this game, everyone has a faction, and that faction will have a certain amount of cards in it, and you are playing out those cards and paying for those cards, and you're building out this engine, trying to race to 25 points. And one thing I love about this game is, especially in a 2-player game, the game is fast, almost too fast to be completely honest. I kind of wish it went to 35, which I guess we could just make it go to 35. But you are going out to these islands and you're grabbing stuff from the islands and you're producing resources and using those resources to put it on other cards and get points. And the cool thing is all the factions are completely different. They have a whole unique deck and they have their own feel. Certain ones are really good at this, certain ones are really good at that, certain ones get a lot of money, these ones get a lot of apples. They do a whole bunch of different stuff. And at this point, it's like, we're gonna play, I'm like, Mike, give me a random faction, I'm gonna play that faction. And it's just so much fun. And in the base game, there's like 8 factions, so you have a lot to choose from. And then at this point, I think they've done enough expansions where there's like 8 more factions. I just love Empires of the North. I never, ever, ever get tired of this game and playing the different factions. It's our number 1, it's amazing.
So that was 500 to 401, 10 games. There really are more than that, but those are 10 games that we enjoyed the most from that section of 100.
Indeed, indeed. So let us know down in the comments below. Go through this top 100 here and pick your favorite game, your top 5 game, or your whole top 10. Some people have been putting their own top 10s as they go.
I love seeing that.
Super, super cool to see. So put that down in the comments below. And until next time, I'm Nick.
I'm Mike.
We're the Brothers Murph. We'll see you later, everybody.
Bye.